Hey there. So today I just wanted to really address the how much is enough question that if you're a brand new creator, founder, business owner, you are likely wondering what is enough. I think there's definitely two camps or two groups of people. There are the people that, like I was, um, about 8 to 10 years ago, when I was working in my full-time corporate career. I pretty much used any revenue I got from my consulting business on the side as sort of revenue that I could fund my business. And so I didn't necessarily need to make a mortgage payment or have my W-2 match revenue. I wasn't yet in it was interesting because the back up against the wall feeling that you have if you need to make payroll in your business, or that occurs when you didn't have a launch or you didn't sell anything. And so you can see a month that might go by or weeks go by where you're not getting paid. At the end of the day, and I'm also going to pop in a link here to Amy Porterfield's recent podcast episode where she addresses the same. And as I said, this is not a topic that is that uncommon to anyone that is brand new in business. Now, when I'm addressing, it depends on where you are in your stage of life and in the stage of your business. For example, if you're between 20 and 30, and you're trying to get your business off the ground and maybe you do need to pay the bills. So you're probably working a day job of some kind, or maybe many jobs. That's definitely going to be a challenge, especially if you're a new parent. There's a lot of time that you don't really have. It becomes even more important for you to try to make as much money as you can in your business, get it launched, get it off the ground so that you don't need to have those multiple other jobs and you can pay your bills easily. It shifts and changes a bit, especially, so I'm a Gen X, and for those of us who are over 40 and have done the corporate grind for 20 years or 15 plus years or whatever, too long in maybe some situations, you're sitting there and you're thinking, all right, what is enough? How can I get out of this? And I think about myself when I got laid off the third time and I decided I'm done with this. I am not going to spend any more time and energy going to look for another job. You don't want to rely on unemployment. You don't want to rely on having to find a day job. So when you actually are in your business, you really need to think through what is enough. Is it $1 million? Probably not, especially if you're just starting out. And now doesn't mean you can't attain that or get to that level for sure. But what is it that you're trying to accomplish monetarily? So some might say the most common thing is I want to replace my day job, my salary. So let's say you're making $120,000 a year and you want to replace that salary. What you need to do, and it's completely doable, what you need to understand though is, what is it that you sell? What is your offer? Who are you trying to appeal to? And then you can start thinking through about what their challenges are and how you can help them. And what I did was I basically took what I did professionally, which was digital marketing and strategic SEO for Fortune 500 companies. And I decided to appeal to similar other companies that did not have internal, a senior VP or a director of marketing who understood how to strategically put together a plan. And so I kind of came in as, well, you don't have to pay me a full-time salary, certainly not what I was getting on an annual basis plus benefits, but what I'm offering you is a lot more than that. And you don't have to pay for my PTO or any of the other benefits that a full-time employee gets. This is why it's easy to replace your full-time job. And I say easy because I know that there are some of you out there that are probably struggling right now, wondering, I'm still working in a corporate job and I just want to get out from under this. And I want to be able to be done with and put my 2 weeks notice in and be done with it. So back to the question of how much, what is enough? What is enough for you? So I think the right answer is enough is that you can be comfortable, pay your bills, and have some extra cushion so that you're not paycheck to paycheck or payroll to payroll, or you are able to pay your bills and pay if you have any freelancers or anybody that's working with you. You want to be able to feel comfortable in being able to do that. So it could be 3 or 4 different client projects that maybe $2,500 a month. That might be enough. It might be you're trying to sell some kind of a coaching package. Again, depending on who you're appealing to, what the price of that package is. It could be anything, but you just need to really get clear on what it is you're offering, how much it is that you're offering that for, and then you can really kind of start putting together that launch package. So the other thing I heard early on in my entrepreneurial career was, what is your ramen number, your ramen noodle number? So basically, the thinking, if you don't know, if you ever gone to the store and especially if you're in college and you ever gotten ramen noodles, it's like, I think, what is it, like 50 cents a cup of noodles or something? So the thinking is you just need to make enough to barely pay, just about pay your bills. And so that's one way to do it for sure. But I like to have a little bit of an extra cushion. So you have to start thinking through, what is your runway? You should have at least 6 months of a runway, I think is comfortable enough. And especially in the economy today, it may be a little risky. It becomes a big crushing mindset thing when you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get the next client? You really don't want to do that. Especially if you're married and your partner is not necessarily on board, or they're trying to be supportive, but they really are unsure. So they're like, yay, go, but they don't really know what you can do or what you can accomplish. And it's scary for them too. We have to acknowledge that our spouses may not be entrepreneurial. And so we have to consider their feelings. We should consider their feelings if they are a spouse of yours, or a partner that is really supporting you emotionally, but probably also financially, just making sure that he or she is paying those bills and making sure that you get through paying your rent or your mortgage. So what I'm about to say next is probably going to be especially hard for those people who are in a corporate job. And what I would really urge you, not to quit your day job until you have that 6-month runway of expenses, because they will come up. You always have expenses in your business. And you can always float so much on your credit card, but you don't really want to carry debt, because that's not freedom in a business. It's just being, having to carry this debt around. You ideally want to be able to pay yourself and then give yourself a distribution at the end of the year, like a bonus, and be able to say, you know what, I really worked hard, and now I'm able to give myself this additional $25,000 or $30,000, whatever that is. And then it feels good. It feels rewarding. So come up with, what is your enough? Is your enough $5,000 a month? Is that, and again, I've had conversations with my husband where we talked about what we needed to do. It absolutely needed to cover the mortgage, which is not cheap. We needed to cover more than just the basics of the bills or the mortgage. We needed to be able to enjoy ourselves and go travel. So we had to figure out, okay, if we want to travel more often, how much is that going to be? And we need to factor that in. If there was some debt, that's going to push back some of that travel. And maybe you don't travel in 1 year because you're paying down some debt, or you're reworking a new offer, and you're testing a new campaign. And so it might pull you back a little bit. These are the things that somebody working in a corporate day job is not necessarily thinking of. They're thinking about every 2 weeks, I get a paycheck. It automatically gets deposited, and I have paid time off that I can take. And it's a different lifestyle. So take it from somebody who was in a corporate lifestyle for, well, literally from 2006 until 2018. And in all of that time, yes, I got great, valuable experiences. I was able to make sure that college was paid for and other expenses were paid for. So in a way, it was great that it happened, these layoffs, when they did. I just want you to really hear what I say, understand what your enough is. Your enough can't be $1,000 a month, especially if you're living in North America. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to be able to pay all of your expenses and your rent or mortgage and buy yourself some food to eat, especially if you have a family. The worst thing you can do, and this is a big thing, especially with people, whether they're men or women, particularly I've heard with a lot of women business owners that are married and that have a business of their own and become very successful. There are a lot of cases or situations where there's a strain on the relationship. So understand what your enough number is. Make sure that you have that conversation with your spouse or your partner, and that you guys are both on the same page. In my first business, actually, it was 2004 to 2006. Before I then started working for the man, I had my own consulting practice way back then. And my husband came into my office and said, "It's time to find a big girl job. You got to get a job that's going to pay every other week," because there was not enough coming in from that consulting business. And it had been 2 very difficult years. Now, there were a lot of things I did wrong and a lot of things I learned from that experience. I agreed with my husband that I did need to go get a job, which was beneficial because then I was able to get that necessary experience from all of those years, all the skills I learned, all the situations with different clients, I literally working internationally. So what a huge education that was for me. And so I'm very happy that I was able to be in a situation for all those years where I got to learn on my employer's dime, basically. And so I would work on my business on the side and build it up to a point where by the time I did get laid off, I was able to immediately turn around and just start building business and getting new clients. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, because I had heard this on Amy Porterfield's podcast, and I just thought this would be really a valuable conversation to have with you guys as well. And so if you're wondering whether you're in a corporate job or you're now starting in your business, really understand and think through, what is that basic monthly revenue? What is enough? It might only be $250,000 a year. You don't necessarily need to be making $2.5 million a year. Now, if it doesn't mean that you can't, but it'll give you peace of mind to know my goal is 250. Maybe I'm at 150. It's not that out of reach. And then how do you get that? And so it also takes the pressure off of this big monumental goal as well. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.